Good evening and welcome. I'm glad to see so many faces here tonight, so many new faces that I haven't seen before, and you're in for quite a treat. Tonight's program is Where is Marketing Now? And we're delighted to be here at the Morris Museum, New Jersey's other museum. But I'm very impressed with it, I must say. It's a great museum. Hope you come back and take a look at it. Tonight's event is a partnership between the New Jersey Advertising Club and the PRSA and the MCAI. We have Marilyn Avery here, president of the MCAI. Marilyn, do you want to say anything?
Really wonderful to see all of you here, a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new ones, and it's great to get together like this. Hope we'll see a lot of you in July at the summer party, I guess we should call it that.
Awesome.
But thank you all for coming and hope you enjoy the program.
Thank you, Marilyn. Also tonight, I would want to recognize some in-kind sponsors that we have. Skyline Exhibits has a display in the back. We have Scott Price here, the president of Skyline. I hope you get a chance to visit his booth. If you really want to see what he does, you should come out to the Jersey Awards on May 29th at the Chart House in Weehawken. The New Jersey Advertising Club's annual award ceremony will take place, and Scott and his team put up the displays. And he does an excellent job, so I hope you can come out for that. We also have Commerce and Industry, another sponsor. Their magazines are on your chairs, and we're delighted that they help us throughout the year. I want to personally thank the person that really put tonight's program together, David Fink. He really reached out to our speakers. Thank you, David. And so without further ado, David, I'll let you introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Michael. Whoa, this is loud. Glad we got a nice audience tonight. I think we sat down at the end of last year and looked to plan out the 2008 programs and what would be relevant topics. We have a healthcare marketing one scheduled for this fall, but definitely the most important and relevant topic really impacting all of us in this industry is new media. Advertisers are always looking for new ways to extend their brand. Advertising agencies and marketing consultants are looking for ways to get their clients to stand out from everyone else. And fortunately, the trends in technology enable us to catch people wherever and whenever they are. So I immediately reached out to two of the most relevant people that I know, Adam Shapiro and Jason Cohen. Both with very significant backgrounds in production and media, and have followed with their careers the trends in technology. And the PRSA brought on Tom Byro from the MWW Group, our first speaker, and we just have three very dynamic and extremely experienced individuals that I think you're going to learn a lot from. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Tom from the MWW Group. He is the Vice President of Digital Media. He handles the agency's Dialogue Media Group, where they evaluate all social media and tactics and implement them into practice for their clients and themselves. Prior to MWW, and currently today is a compulsive blogger, and has spent many years with Deutsche Telekom and American Express. So, Tom?
Thanks for having us here tonight. Tom Bira, I work for MWW Group. We are a public relations agency based out of East Rutherford, New Jersey. And I don't know if that's a little weird for PR people to be speaking to what I guess is a significant amount of people who really touch advertising heavily. So hopefully today, what we talk about today won't be too foreign. But really what I wanted to talk about when I had spoken with David was how the worlds of advertising and PR are really coming together a little bit more closely than I think they ever have before. Having worked a little bit on the advertising side with American Express for a number of years as a buyer, and it felt like things were very different at the time. You know, around 1999, 2000, the internet is obviously mega hot, but what the PR agencies were doing at the time is very different from what they're doing today. So I just want to talk about a couple of different trends and things I'm seeing, and hopefully that'll be of interest. So, obviously advertising and PR have crossed paths before. They're sort of the two heavy hitter disciplines when it comes to marketing as an overarching theme. Public relations and advertising have two typically very different paths to hopefully doing the same thing for our clients. Right now, though, we're seeing when it comes to, just having a little fun with social media street and influencer way, it's, how we're all trying to reach the same people in some ways. And sometimes right now we're starting to use the same tactics instead of, what used to be billboards over here and getting an op-ed over here. Now we're all saying, okay, how do we reach the bloggers who cover gadgets? So here, advertising and PR have always been able to reach the mass or the niche through a multitude of different tactics. Right now, as I was mentioning earlier, they're using, I guess, some of the same tactics. Examples including the one at my own agency. We have a full-service creative shop. We could do advertising if we really want to. We don't. It's not our business. It's not our forte. But we do design websites. We do a ton of search engine optimization. We do video campaigns. Everybody comes in and says, I want the new viral video for my client. We could do that if we wanted to. Or we'll coordinate with their advertising agencies. On the flip side of that, things that a lot of PR agencies frankly had adopted, at least in my experience, before some of the advertising agencies did, were things such as virtual worlds, places where companies wanted to get into, buzzwords, in places like Second Life. If everybody in here familiar with Second Life, or have we at least all heard of it? So it's kind of funny because PR Week and a lot of the ad trades, everybody was hot on Second Life, everybody wants to be in Second Life. Second Life still today has the same amount of traffic, visitorship, regular users that it did before any PR advertising and marketing person did, but to PR advertising and marketing trades, it's dead. It's a bad world to go to, don't spend your money. It's really don't spend the $50,000 on the island that you don't need. Figure out how you can develop a relationship with the people who are in that space. They still serve the same value they did when you decided to build Pontiac Island or whatever it was. It's just that you don't need to go in with such the heavy-handed approach. You're not going to get harassed by the people who are in there. You're going to talk to the same people you wanted to before. So in turn, a lot of advertising agencies have really taken that on as an expertise, probably because they already have a lot of digital media or web development expertise. And there's some conflict there, and as we'll get into a little bit later, you're starting to see agencies or clients are saying, who do I talk to when I want to do a given project? So things that are in play. These are things that, for me, most of the stuff is in my standard presentation. If I go to give a new business presentation to a prospect, these are 8 of the things I would say we could do. There's probably 20 or 30 more bullet points I could talk about. These are also things that when I do work with partner advertising agencies or go in a combined pitch, these are pretty much standard play in most of the agencies' decks that I work with. So we sort of have to figure out who's going to do what. And just like we in turn, having 10 or 11 offices plus some other partner agencies inside and outside of the US, come up with a best in team approach for our clients or prospects, we do the same thing with our partner agencies. So we do a lot of work with Deutsch as an example. If we go in on a joint pitch, for instance, we work a lot with Under Armour. Under Armour does probably 99% of its advertising in-house. However, they're doing a lot of their public relations and then some of the strategy in their advertising development through Deutsch and MWW Group. So we actually have an MWW at Deutsch organization, and there's a dedicated team that sits there that sort of has both hats on, if you will, just because there's so much a confluence of what the clients are looking for on a given day. So these are kind of things that I'm seeing cross the line. Anything else? That anybody here who either works on the PR or the advertising side is seeing or has conflicts, which agency do I work with? Or your existing clients are going to your competitors or other agencies. For me, these are things that in a lot of cases represent incremental revenue. I may have a client that's a $250,000 a year client, and I know in any given year I might have $25,000 or $50,000 of extra revenue I can get out of them just because we have other ideas and other campaigns and money comes up. A lot of times these are easy areas to plug that in, but I'm finding that they're going to their other agency partners to do so. So just some examples, just to sort of talk about what I'm doing on a regular basis. We do, and maybe this will help, I'll give you a little bit more background about myself and my team. I run a group called Dialogue Media at MWW Group, and we're made up exclusively of people who have PR backgrounds or educations, but that are like big social media users. So either all bloggers or all podcasters, or spend a ton of time in social networks, or influential in some space online. And what's great is we're instantly credible with a lot of people because they can type our name into Google, get 10,000 results, and see that we're not wasting their time. So they're going to be much more likely to take an interview with one of our clients, post something with, in their blog with what we might have to say, or frankly, give us some feedback and help us get our messaging out. So a couple of examples of, projects I work on. For about 2.5 years now, really since I've been at MWW, we've worked a lot with McCann Erickson on Nikon. Nikon's a huge brand that doesn't do a ton of advertising as compared to its competitors, but they do enough, and they do a significant amount of buys, and that's really ramped up since I've been working with them. We do everything from, frankly, bouncing around their campaign concepts to figure out what's going to fly online, what are bloggers going to complain about, to when the ads do come out, pitching the ads to the ad trades. Myself and one of my staffers, we actually founded AdJab, which was an advertising blog that was pretty popular, that AOL ultimately bought and sort of rounded the content into some other sites that they do. But we have a lot of contacts in that area. So sometimes it's as simple block and tackle work as talking to the ad trades, whatever they be online, and getting the campaign pitched and buzz out about it. Same thing with Volkswagen. We work pretty closely with Crispin Porter on a regular basis. They crank out a ton of advertising online and off, and we sort of work on what kinds of things we can do to extend that. And what's nice is we're not necessarily doing any extra or creating any extra work for the client or even for the agency partner. We're just extending the work they're already doing. So instead of them just running an ad, we're making the ad a discussion topic. So it used to be you had Brand Week and Ad Week and a lot of the other Ad Age and the other publications you'd go to. We're taking that discussion online into forums and other spaces just to really get buzz going on about sometimes as simple as the ad campaign, sometimes as simple as the company's moving a headquarters, whatever it is, and we work very closely with the ad agency in that space. On the other side, working with Gardenburger for about a year, we did a pretty successful viral campaign that Brand Week wrote up 2-3 months ago, maybe a little bit longer ago, where it was simply, real men eat Gardenburger, and having people submit who their real men was. And there was a pretty significant contest element to it, and we were really successful. It was something they could have used the advertising agency partners that they had, but they came to us because we had the influencer knowledge online. And on the bottom there, something I'm pretty proud of. For 2 years in a row, we've been working with Anheuser-Busch on just simply getting buzz out there about their advertising for the Super Bowl. They spend a ton of money on it. We know they're going to get post-game buzz about their ads. They know that. But they really value, things like the ad meter, and they want to win it every year. So whether it's AOL's poll, USA Today, whatever it is, their goal is we want to be #1 in that poll. Okay, so how do we do that? We came up with some tactics to really just promote them online, get teasers of all of the ads out. Last year, when we still had Dale Earnhardt Jr. to work with, that's a huge play where we can get discussion about the ads before the game that feature Dale Jr. in NASCAR message boards and on blogs. And it's something we've done a really good job at, and they called us this year to come back and do it again. And the goal is not necessarily sell beer. I mean, it is at the ultimate, but they came to us because they said we need to influence so much so that when people see the ads on television, they're already somewhat familiar. And then when the ad meters and other things are going on, that we're already going to be in the back of heads of people who are sort of voting for that. So these are just a couple of different examples of things that kind of cross the line between advertising and PR, or 5 years ago wouldn't have necessarily been done by the public relations side of the game. So what's this come down to? More agency, collaboration, and team up. For the most part, that's been pretty good. But the second bullet is there's that increased competition for the dollars. There's only so many dollars to go around for different agencies, and we're sort of potentially taking a piece of the pie from the advertising partners, and the advertising partners are in turn taking things that we would think are part of our responsibilities. The third one is really the most important. There's a lot of confusion on who owns what, who should be doing what. Just like John and I were talking about who owns a brand. Is it the person who's come up with your brand and your image and your logo? or is it the client, or is it the ad agency, or, you know, all those different partners? Those discussions will go on forever. In that same turn, you know, who owns what online? Who am I supposed to go to when I want to, you know, try and come up with a new viral video concept? When I want to get stuff on YouTube, who do I go to? Is it my PR partner or my advertising partner? I don't necessarily have the answer to that. I can give you my opinion, but, you know, that's something that's come up that's really new to me, you know, working in the PR space. And, you know, the last bullet, which is sort of a downer as well, is the influencers, people who are relevant in any given space. As much as that number is growing, and there's more influencers in the car space or the gadget space or food space, they're getting dozens, if not hundreds, if not more, frankly, of pitches and things in their inbox every single day. So as we're seeing other people taking everything to the super granular level, and now everybody's pitching their ad campaigns, and everybody's pitching their new product, and they're talking about their new spokespeople and whatever else it is. If you use something like Engadget, which is sort of the world's most popular, you know, tech blog, they're probably getting between 300 and 500 pitches a day, if I had to guess, just based on what I've seen and having some friends that have worked there. When I wrote for AdJab, we got probably between 40 and 50 a day, and all I was doing is writing about people's advertising campaigns. So if we were writing about, you know, the actual products, it's even greater of a number. So, I'm sorry, this is probably a little eye chart for some of the folks in the back. I'll just read it for you. You know, if anything, the intersection's only going to continue and grow with holding companies such as the one that MWW is a part of, IPG, really looking to sweeten their own offerings with, you know, having other companies that do the same thing. I'll go in and want to work with, you know, my optimal measurement partner, and then there's the partner I want to work with that does our sort of pre-pitch research and gives us direction, and then there's an advertising agency I can partner up with. That said, there's tons of companies that have really good expertise. I spoke with a gentleman prior to this who, you know, works in SEM, SEO space. That's a huge thing. I haven't gone into a new business pitch in a year that they haven't asked for search engine optimization in some way, shape, or form. So people who are doing that, people who are just consulting on design, people who are consulting on use of video online, people who know how to do, you know, online talk shows, use things like blog talk radio or blog software or podcasting, whatever it is. You develop a really hardcore expertise in a space, people are going to want your business. Frankly, agencies like myself, I can only scale so far. So I'm going to be looking for the right partner who knows how to do those things that I can actually trust to hand the work off, because there's so many people saying we do everything. It's really challenging to find the people who actually know what they're doing. So, you know, something I would really drive for as far as a solution is, frankly, I mean, I think everybody here shares tactics and ideas and thoughts. A lot of other events I go to, people really do the same, and people definitely do online. A lot of, you know, the folks who have my job at other agencies, we all talk to each other and sort of talk about what works and what doesn't. And that only makes us all better at the end of the day. The big challenge I see is measurement. And, you know, the days of ad value and all those statistics being the only thing. Some clients really love that stuff and they still want that alone. A lot of them are really getting past it, and they're saying, sure, we have 50,000 people in our Facebook group, and, you know, we answered 10 questions a day and whatever else there is. What does it mean? And they have no idea. And again, I could answer that 10 different ways, but what's the solution? No one's really sure yet. It's really about measuring engagement, whatever that is. You know, how are you really influencing people? How far into the conversation is your messaging going? How many phone calls are you getting about your product when all you did was put a press release out on your website? You know, are your RSS feed subscribers higher this month than last? Whatever it is, coming up with a combination of the data you have and creating some new measure is really where I think you know, all of our industries need to go.
As I switch presentations here, Tom brings up an excellent point. I mean, if you just look at like Southwest Airlines, you know, GSDM put them on the map and Southwest put them on the map, but now Southwest has, you know, 8+ different agencies that they work with. So as the mediums have grown and the different channels of communication have grown, different agencies specialize in those different, and yeah, Chuck's an SEO guy, we've got, you know, multicultural agencies and interactive agencies, so I thought that was excellent. Our next speaker, as I pull up his presentation, is Jason Cohen. Jason is the Director of Sports Production for HBO. He spearheads the technical coordination of the network's live boxing telecasts, ensuring the use of the latest technology advancements while overseeing the show's budgetary obligation. Before his current role with HBO, Jason managed Inside the NFL and a live boxing series on HBO Latino. Jason's television career has spanned almost 15 years, including stops in local news and sports, major West Coast production company, ESPN, and broadcast public relations. Jason Cohen.
Thank you, Dave. Hello, everybody. It's good to see everyone. Even though I don't know you, it's still good to see you. So, who am I? I guess that's the first thing we have to decide, and obviously Dave kind of gave me a semi-introduction. Well, I know who I'm not, and I'm not him. But I do know this. I've made a bunch of stops in the TV business. I'm kind of like a nomad in many regards. I started in local news, so I understand that perspective as to what the news industry is looking for and what they need. I went off to ESPN, and I understand what the major ESPN network is looking for. I even worked in broadcast public relations, and that's that field of public relations where they handle the TV side of what your public relations client is looking for, satellite media tours, video news releases, media events. And now I'm at HBO, and I've been there for about 6 years. And as Dave mentioned, I work for the sports department, and I handle boxing. And while boxing used to be simply just a TV medium, it's changed considerably. It's no longer just TV. So the question is, if it's not TV, then what is it? And that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. I mean, 18 months ago, we never considered producing any form of programming other than what you saw on your television. We'd go to conferences in Las Vegas, and you would do nothing but see different cameras and different plasma televisions, and it's changed. It just seems like 2 days ago, we were dealing with black and white, and granted, I wasn't dealing with black and white, obviously, but somebody was. But I was dealing with this, high definition. You know, we spent a couple years trying to fine-tune 720p, 1080i, now 1080p, all the different types of formats that you could deal with in high definition, and that's changed, and it's changed very quickly, and it's changed to this. And this is what your clients are dealing with, and this is what we're dealing with on the network level, and I hope tonight that I can at least explain to you that we're dealing with the same issues, and I can prove to you the emphasis of which we're placing on it, because the numbers are growing every single day, and the demand upon our network executives is to produce more and more for that user. And you know, from today's point of view, it's everything you see. It's podcasting, it's broadband on computer, it's not even just high definition anymore. It's soon to be what they call ultra high definition, which is 4K, which is 4 times better than high definition. And it's even, you know, platforms that are greater than that, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It's cell phones, which Adam will touch upon, the use of that. And it's every other type of viewing experience that one could imagine. So, we talk about where's the proof? You know, who's actually watching these types of materials online? Who's watching these types of materials on your phone? Who's sitting on the train watching a show on their BlackBerry? Just looking at the sports version, 45% of those today that are sports fans have watched some form of a highlight clip online. That means someone has gone onto an ESPN.com or CNN.com and watched the highlight of their favorite team edited on that website and now watching it on the computer, not on the TV. In 2 years, that number is going to be 56%. So you're saying in 2 years from now, more than half of the sports fans out there are going to be watching their highlights online. As far as YouTube, 32% now of those sports fans are watching some form of clips, highlights, packages, features, materials on YouTube, 46% in 2 years. And on iTunes, 23% now, 36% in 2 years. So the numbers are growing, the stats are there, and there's certainly no denying it. As a matter of fact, I attended a conference last week in Las Vegas, and one of the days was focused on what NBC is going to do at the Olympics in Beijing this year, and I actually thought it was fascinating. What they're doing this year at NBC is they're going to produce 3,600 hours of live TV coverage upon all their different networks. They've got CNBC, MSNBC, NBC. They're going to take 3,600 hours of live TV and put them on those channels. More astonishing, they're going to do an additional 2,200 hours of live web streaming on their internet. So you can at some point during your day in the office log on to NBC.com, and throughout the 17 days of the Olympic Games, they're going to have 22 hours of live events. And their approach was that they don't feel the live events on the internet are going to deter people from watching it at night on TV. They think it enhances it. They think what they do is they build momentum and build interest with their online viewers, and it translates into their TV audience at night. In all, 6,600 hours of coverage is what they're going to do in 17 days from China, between on-demand, their internet experience, and their television networks. They're going to produce over 6,500 hours of Olympic coverage. In relation, I'm speaking for 15 minutes, so clearly the Olympics is a much bigger deal. But I work for HBO. I don't get paid by NBC, at least not yet. So if anyone's in the room from NBC. So what do we do at HBO? 18 months ago, we never even produced a single ounce of footage for anything other than the television. Now, we produce for all of these platforms and more. HBO Mobile includes Singular, AT&T, YouTube, On Demand, podcasting, we do video, we do audio. All of these have sprung out within the last 18 months from zero effort before. iTunes alone. Again, this just started about a year ago. Now we're up to 22 million iTunes users with 17 different channels from all of our favorite shows, which means 50 million downloads have been done so far, 2 to 3 million a month. And that's just in iTunes alone, and that's with a campaign that's not even 18 months old. It can barely walk. So, in sports, last month we had a fight in Las Vegas. It was a Marquez versus Pacquiao rematch, in which ordinarily, a year ago, we would only produce the live version of that show. We'd go home, we'd call it a day. Now, after the live event is over, not only do we have to do 5 mobile segments, 6 YouTube segments, 5 iTunes segments, 3 on-demand segments, and broadband, and 6 hours of overtime when the show is done. We're doing all of this at the end of the night just to meet all the different media platforms that we are required to cover. And this just obviously isn't HBO. This is every single sports entity has to do the same thing. Entire divisions now have been created just to work on these campaigns and more. And I feel that 5 segments today is going to be 10 tomorrow, because that's where our audience is and that's where the demands are coming, and we have to meet them. What's next? 3D. The biggest story in Las Vegas last week was 3D. It's now gotten to the point where they're now shooting major features in 3D, they're shooting live sports in 3D, and they can now edit in 3D, and they can deliver a 3D signal back to the house as well as closed circuit to movie theaters. So it's changed. Everything's changed, and the experience has become unreal. So that's it for me. I think we're doing questions now?
At the end.
At the end.
We'll have questions for everyone.
All right.
Awesome. Very good. Unbelievable. I mean, the technology changes so quick. I remember actually John, who's from my office, I remember one of our more senior designers, meaning in age, was trying to transfer a bunch of a huge file over to another computer and said, I don't want to bog down the server. And John whips out his iPod and said, I'll transfer it for you. Zaps the computer and brings it over. And us older guys, me being older at 35, basically stood there in astonishment. The most incredible technology that I have seen to date is from our next speaker. He's going to talk again about his background and the trends in technology and production. But I think he has something that is pretty amazing in terms of technology for marketers. With that, I'm going to introduce Adam Shapiro. He's a senior executive for the Eastern region for SnapNow, a new mobile technology that links images taken by any camera phone to broadband, and that's referring to what I was referring to. The way Google links words to search results. Prior to the move to this revolutionary image recognition mobile technology company, Adam has worked in digital as executive editor at WNBC.com, managing editor of WCBS-TV.com, and news director of News 12 Interactive. He's also a television veteran, having produced newscasts in Miami, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Syracuse. Adam has also been a radio anchor and sports talk show host, and in the ultimate small world, worked on that radio show with fellow panel member Jason Cohen, and he's also a new father, and we all Welcome, Adam.
Thank you very much, Dave. Very excited to be here. It really is a pleasure. I've been very much looking forward to this because I feel like I've kind of been on both sides of the marketing game. And in one sense, I started on the media, and in so many ways, it was that powerful way to market. And now I'm working on something that's completely different, and something that I hope at the end of the night you look and say, maybe that's a solution. I realize that the media landscape is changing, and I'm certainly glad that I'm not producing all that stuff at HBO. It's a different world, and we'd like to think that we can help out with that. But before I get into that, I'll kind of talk a little bit about the media, my role in it. And as I was putting this together, I kind of realized that I hope you don't hate me for it, but I think I am the medium killer. I say that because I started in radio at WIBX News Radio 950 in Utica, New York, and it is a news talk station, and I was an anchor reporter up there, and there was a very effective marketing campaign. Somebody came to one of the guys on our staff who was a little overweight and said, "We've got a diet technique, we'd like to give it to you." And he used that opportunity. It was fairly revolutionary at the time. He used the opportunity to not only use their product, but talk about it every day on the air. It was, at the time, a pretty neat idea. Give people an opportunity to hear more about this product just by giving away a free sample. It worked very well. Being able to do that kind of outreach in radio is becoming less and less effective. It's the theme of why we're all here is how do we get that message out? And I point to the trends in radio, and I realized that perhaps this wasn't a growth industry, but every time I turned around, it seemed like fewer people were listening. So I wanted to get into television, kind of give a bigger platform to marketers, and I got into television. As Dave said, I worked with Jason Cohen in Las Vegas, and I tell you, there is no better place to be when you're 25 years old in Las Vegas. But one of the things that we quickly realized was that all of the different casinos, I mean, if there's the marketing Super Bowl, it's probably in Las Vegas, and the casinos who work so hard and do so much to get the word out about why their hotel is better than everybody else's, why their shows are better than everybody else's. And I was in television, and I met someone from Bally's who said, "Hey, if you ever want tickets to Jubilee, just let me know." So I had some friends coming in and coming into town, and they gave me tickets, and we were in the front row. And I'm telling you, I felt like Telly Savalas. I was like, "Hello there, hey, this is my house," But what I quickly started to realize was that by doing this, they were developing a friendly relationship with the news media. They were making it so that the next time that they had the world's largest slot machine coming in, something that normally isn't worth 15 seconds on the newscast, that those producers might be a little bit more likely to want to run that. I'm not saying I ran it, but I was tempted. When I went to Arizona, I was in television in Arizona, and I was there for the Diamondbacks' first season. And they were putting out these hats, these bright purple opening day hats that had stitching on the side. Really pretty hideous. But it was the Diamondbacks, and everybody was excited, new team in town. And one of the marketing executives for the team gave me one and talked about how everybody's so excited for these and all that. And we wound up doing a kicker in the newscast about these hats. They wound up becoming very popular. I'm not suggesting it was only because of Kent Dana and Lynn Sue Cooney talking about it on the 6 o'clock news, but I think we contributed to that. And it was part of the overall theme of getting your message out in big media can help. Now, that's great, except I am the media killer. And the evening news kept falling and falling. So it was time to try something different. I came back to New York. I was working with Channel 2, and for a while I was the Westchester bureau chief for WCBS. We had a partnership with the Journal News, a wonderful newspaper. I'm huge fans of the people up there. I think they do things very, very well. But as you can probably imagine, the newspaper industry is having tough times as well. So you can probably guess where this is going next. I got into digital. Was into digital previously I had some experience with News 12, but also then became managing editor with Channel 2, wound up being executive editor of Channel 4, and things got different. And this is a really poorly made slide, but these were supposed to be the different places that I've worked. But the keys to online marketing in all those regards, what I found were you really have to find that niche. the websites that were out there that were trying to be all things to all people, we fully recognized that everybody was going to have the story about congestion pricing. There was very little that we could do at WNBC.com that was going to be that different than what was at WCBS or Channel 7 or the New York Times or the New York Post. But instead, let's really try to hit hard what those niches are. Try to find that thing that your brands and your products really hit, and then go after that small group on the web, because niches are unbelievably large on the World Wide Web. It is absolutely stunning to me how many people are a part of every single, Needlecraft on Tuesdays group. They're out there. So the key is, go to a Technorati, a big blog site, or just go into different groups within Yahoo or Google, and do some pretty extensive searches for people that want to hear what you have to say about what you're talking about. If we were doing a pets campaign, because God forbid the media not focused on pets, if we were doing a pets campaign, instead of just putting it out there, I would want to reach out to every dog site out there to say, hey, do you realize that you could send us pictures of your pets? That kind of stuff. My wife and I, we just moved to Montclair about 6 months ago, and I was stunned that there's a Montclair group on Yahoo, and I was stunned how few restaurants in the Montclair area have used this site to be able to really show why they're different than everybody else. Why should you try us on, pasta night, or whatever the case may be? They weren't using the opportunity to market in less traditional ways, and I think it's really an opportunity. And along those lines, I would also say you have to be tireless. There are some times where you're going to email the person at that particular website, and they're not going to want to hear from you, and that's fine. But don't take it personally. It's worth the effort. If you can get some good buzz by people who think like you do, or think like your brands want you to think, then it's going to be very well worth it. This was the one medium I didn't kill. So I'm actually kind of proud of that. But even with that, while I was in the midst of the digital revolution, there are fewer people watching television, there are fewer people reading magazines, there are fewer people on all of those slides that I showed you. And the one thing that really struck me was digital is growing, but there is a world of competition out there. It's hard to put out a website and really get a lot. People aren't impressed by having a website anymore. People aren't impressed by, wow, if you click this, it'll go here. You kind of have to earn it more than you did before. And in that sense, it's why I got into something very different, and that was, as Dave mentioned, the company called SnapNow. Basically, it's a mobile visual search. Snap a picture of something with your cell phone and get information about what you snapped a picture of. So in doing some research for that, this is the good slide, so I used color. But if you know anybody, if there's anybody in here without a cell phone, I'd be surprised. The rise of cell phones is extraordinary, and more people now are saying this can be, in a sense, my pocket PC. It doesn't, if you have a BlackBerry, you know what it's like to go through the email. You can use the trios. You can, internet access is extraordinary. In fact, I think it was during the Super Bowl. I'm not certain. I think it was during the Super Bowl. ESPN actually produced more mobile pages than they produced web pages. The growth is extraordinary. More and more people, especially the younger demographic, those who, frankly, we consider part of our target audience, our biggest target audience. I hate to acknowledge that I'm now far from our target audience. I put a ringback tone on my phone, and the people in the office were like, "Oh, that's cool. What's that?" And I was like, "We need to understand our people better." But this is the world we're living in now. So this is basically how it works. You take a picture of, in this case, the poster for The Matrix. Snap a picture with your phone. One of two different things can happen. You can either use our application if you put it onto a phone, where you hit two buttons and it will come back with information about The Matrix. Or you can send a picture, like when my kid brother is in a bar every Saturday night and he takes a picture of him and his drunken friends. Sorry, Dad. And he emails it to show that he's, having fun with his life. That's what they do, and they're very comfortable doing so. So that's the other way to be able to access our database. The key to it is that we can link any two-dimensional image And the real power in it is that we can attach virtually anything to that image. So it can be any URL. If we wanted to take the cover of ESPN.com, we could, or ESPN the magazine, you can snap a picture and it goes to ESPN.com. Or if ESPN were a client, and if anybody here is from ESPN, we're very willing to talk. We could link to anything they wanted, whether it may be their fantasy sports section or to video or to anything really. The whole concept is basically anything that is 2D out there, we can recognize and we can attach with some things. So in this case, say the Harry Potter movie. Harry Potter comes out, and I think it's safe to say they're going to buy at least a quarter-page ad in every newspaper in America, and in many, a full page. The opportunity is there to be able to snap the Harry Potter ad and have it come back with a trailer, or movie reviews, or even a link to Fandango, or information about Daniel Radcliffe, or really anything that the Harry Potter producers wanted it to. We can do magazine editorial. You can take any page in a magazine, load it, and have it linked to either information about the people in it or any ad in the magazine. We could be able to do added value or put a price on it for clients. Really, that's, you know, I hate to sound like a sales guy because, you know, I've told you my background. I'm not a sales guy. I'm an editorial guy. But I think there's an opportunity here. And I think, frankly, that's why we're having some fun with it. So I appreciate your time tonight, and I appreciate your time.
Can I ask him a question?
Yeah, we're going to actually bring all three speakers back up, and we'll take
I have a
questions.
very urgent one for him.
Okay.
How can you make those pictures without violating copyright or without infringing copyright?
Why don't you guys all come back up, Tom?
The pictures themselves, and our attorneys have gone through this rather extensively, any image, once it's out in the ether, you know, once it's out there, it doesn't necessarily, if we were to take that image, say, and put it onto one of our advertisements, saying, click this Time magazine cover, and then, you know, and use that for our own purposes, that would be a violation. But to take...
If you were to put something on my picture of that Harry Potter poster and I sold it, that's infringement.
That would... I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
I said, if I took that picture and you put something on it for me and I then sold it, that now is infringement of copyright.
If you were to sell the response that we gave, you mean?
Well, from what I understand, if I take a picture, you put something, attach it to something to it that I request, can I then sell it?
Well, you couldn't... If you were, and I apologize if I'm not understanding the question, but if you were to come to us and say, I want to link the Harry Potter picture, we wouldn't necessarily be working, you aren't a part of the production company that does the Harry Potter movie, we wouldn't enter into that partnership. We would only do so with those who, you know, who have the ownership of that image. Does that make sense? I apologize if...
So much stuff here. First, I've got so many questions. Who has time to watch all this stuff? How do you get noticed in the crowd? And with all the multitude of formats, I mean, we thought 33, 45, and 78 was a nation that had records in the 50s. I mean, how do you keep up with this? Who keeps up with this? And how can I get involved?
Well, but that's the bottom line, is that I think you have to recognize, you know, like Adam said, you know, who's your target audience, who's your demographic, you know, and while each generation is learning what they know to be their reality, the next generation's only going to know a certain way of life. They're going to grow up only knowing that you take a picture of something and you get back something that you need from it. And that's why, you know, I just showed the numbers, is that, you know, the proof is right there. I mean, you know, every single month that number is changing. And even if we're not accustomed to learning how to produce for those types of formats and how to shoot for those types of formats, and even it goes against everything that you know of how to shoot for a screen, you know, we in the television industry had to change how to shoot for 4:3 to 16:9. And now we're under the mandate that, you shoot once and produce for many. So now you're no longer just shooting for 16 by 9, but now you also have to shoot and capture and edit for smaller screens, and you go backwards. And I think that it's just the kind of thing that we're going to have to learn, because that's where the future is, and the future is where the money is.
To follow up for a second, so all these formats, do you do one thing for people who use Trios, one for people who use Blackberries? Is there a demographic split, a certain type of person uses a Trio, another type uses a Blackberry?
Well, I think that what you first have to do is you have to understand, in the television industry, many networks have taken a stance as to how they want to shoot their show for their own network. Some shows, shoot 16 by 9, but they do what's called a 4 by 3 protect. They do a center cut, so they take the HD wings and they don't worry about that. Others shoot 16 by 9, and they want that look, and they do what's called letterbox, where you get the stripes on the top and the bottom. So you start with the television platform and you decide, okay, how am I going to shoot for the standard def network and the high definition network? Then what do is you worry about the next level, those platforms. And in today's day and age, no one is editing anymore on straight cut machines. Everything is in an Avid or a Final Cut Pro. And once you're in those edit environments, then you do the old shift and scan. Then what you're doing is you're cutting your video based on what platform you have to adhere to. There are some devices out there from companies like Snell and Wilcox that allow you to take footage and digitally shrink it down to size without losing resolution. And other networks choose to take it into an edit room and slide the video left and right until they're happy with their product, so they can then have it encoded and sent to iTunes or YouTube or whomever.
Have you found for an individual, now a voice talent, so I've got my website, which of course everybody needs, I thought it was interesting, but basically you need a website in order to do any business these days. Have you found that there are more people creating websites strictly for mobile and less people viewing it now on a regular computer screen? Have you seen a shift of, okay, I need a website, but now if you have to make a choice, well, I'm going to create a website strictly for the mobile market as opposed to a website for a traditional computer screen?
I can answer that. I mean, I would say now when let's just say you're going to start a new business today and it's, a new Yellow Pages. You build a website because that's where a significant portion of your traffic is. You probably better also create an iPhone-ready page so it looks proper on the iPhone and isn't just the rendering on the iPhone screen. And you probably could also create a BlackBerry application at the same time. It's more of when you're starting from scratch, you look at who's going to potentially use your product, and if anyone in this room is going to use your product, you probably need the iPhone and the BlackBerry options as well as your website. I don't know if you see too many things where the web version of your site is more primitive than what you might get on the mobile, purely because most people aren't walking around with iPhones or hardcore browsers on their mobile devices yet. I mean, there's still plenty of people using WAP browsers on their, their Razor or whatever it is. It's more that it's now, at least in my experience working with clients, it's mandatory to do that at step one, rather than saying a year from now we'll create an iPhone-friendly website. It's just, you just have to.
It's actually where there's opportunity with mobile is, I don't know if you found this, but it's shocking how many, even really major players don't even have a mobile site yet.
Right.
It's, mobile is very much now where the internet was in 1998, 1999, which was, we know we need to do this, but I'm not exactly sure how or why, but it's coming. And what I found in the media game was that in 2005, everybody said, boy, I really wish I got a jump on this. I really wish I was a little smarter 5 years ago. And I think that's the opportunity in mobile, is the opportunity to get ahead of the game instead of playing catch up. Yes.
Some of the things that really hit with viral videos tend to be guerrilla media. And I'm showing my age because I use guerrilla media from a younger group, and they said, what's that? What are guerrillas? You probably understand. From the 60s. But you take something like the Olympics.
Yeah, I suppose.
You take something like the Olympics, and it's clear to me that the next phase of the Free Tibet campaign is going to be a boycott protocol, a boycott visa, and NBC, every sponsor that's lined up. So the question is, you're trying to position your products in a favorable light, but what are you going to do with all those people that may be want their political agenda associated with the product.
There's a couple of things. I mean, frankly, there's a lot of things out there that you could call nuclear wars. They all go back and forth. It's like stealing music. At some point, the industry's winning, and at some point, the rest of the marketplace is winning. In that same vein, right now, I think if you're a protester, you win. Right now, you beat Coca-Cola, you beat whoever it might be, because it's so much easier. It's so much easier for someone to go on Facebook and throw up their anti-whatever, because people want to complain and they talk about things when they have a negative things to say. 90% of the comments you get on your corporate blog, if you have a consumer packaged good product, are probably going to be negative, or 9 to 1, something like that, because it's easier to say something bad. It's why there's so many things like Consumerist and a ton of these websites out there, because it's easier to motivate with a negative than it ever is to shout louder. Now that's the counter to that is the Coca-Colas of the world can outspend any of those organizations on any given day. So the trick is, can you shout loud enough, especially through the advertising mediums, that it doesn't necessarily hurt your perception or coverage in the news media, so the space that I'd work in with trying to influence the news folks. Can you shout loud enough with your advertising and marketing efforts, not ignore, but just sort of try and push to the side the negative comments and things that are going out there. It's too easy to use these tools now. It's free, and frankly, the moment you're ever trying to infiltrate these areas, whether it's a Facebook or MySpace or other social network, and you're found out to be Coca-Cola, you're kicked out so quickly, and the new location crops up over there that you're never going to know what it is before it hits you back. So it's the weaponry right now is too easy for everyone to get, and it's not about dollars and cents anymore. It's just about credibility and who do you believe. And people in the room are trusting people in the room ever before they're trusting my clients. Does that sort of answer your question at least? I don't think there's a solution, frankly, for a lot of these companies right now. And I work with a company that is a Olympic sponsor and just spent a ton of time in San Francisco for the torch relay. And not that it was a disaster for them as a brand, but they were like, wow, we had all these plans 18 months ago about what we're going to do in San Francisco, and it turned out to be 3 days of frankly wasted time for us and the client because of what they did with the torch relay and things that are out of our control. So from a PR standpoint, it's more about mitigate and do something else rather than it is try and shout directly at the people that are contrarian. Does that help a little bit? Okay. Do you guys have any?
I think you're right.
Once you've convinced a traditional media client to make a leap to some of the new media, whether it's podcasting, blogging, whatever, how do you then set the expectation that it's working, that results are acceptable? How do you do that when it's something totally new and they have no parameter of past success?
Well, I think you set the metrics up front. If you fail to set the metrics up front, your project fails even if you had the best viral video or podcast of all time. And frankly, it's reality check. Show them an example of, frankly, something I haven't done. So sometimes I'll use examples for measurement of things other PR agencies or other advertising firms have done that are the same concept, but a different packaged good or whatever it is, and say, this worked and why? And you sort of show them the other metrics, something I had tried to throw out there. Show them engagement, show them data. So I've done work for 24 months on some things for Nikon. The last numbers that came out, the share shift for their product versus Canon directly is significantly changed. And we know anecdotally that people are talking about them differently and buying the products because we see it when I go to events like this versus 2 years ago. But until the data comes out from IDC, I can't really do anything about it. So some of it is using that real world data that isn't as simple as page views and clicks on ads or whatever else there are. It's how do you measure consumer engagement and sort of get them to understand X participants in your Facebook group or people answering your bulletins on MySpace or whatever else it might be. Those are the metrics, and then giving them frankly reality numbers. And the sticker shock is going to happen no matter what. they're going to say, well, we're used to getting 1 million readership in something. I'm like, yeah, but that's every person that buys that newspaper. How many of those people got to the business section or opened page B6? Then, I mean, I'm in PR, and I'll tell you the numbers are BS. Like, I can't stand them. The difference is we're going to come to a point where websites they could do it right now. They could say for any given article about, whoever won a playoff game last night in the NBA, they could tell you exactly how many people opened that specific article up. And so you'd know exactly how many people saw your ad. I don't know whether they're ever going to want to do that, but the technology exists for people to do that. And, it's coming up with the new creative type of measurement that they'll actually believe and see as legitimate, and sort of comparing it to what other people in the market have done.
I think beyond that, you also have to make sure that, and this might sound ridiculously simple, you have to make sure it's really good. Because if you throw out something and give to a client something that isn't something that people will actually want to use and enjoy, but instead sounds like something that would look really snappy when you put it up in the boardroom, it's not going to be effective. I think of, when the Simpsons movie came out, that was an 18-year-old television franchise, and then they created the Simpsonize Me. It was the most brilliant thing in the world. And the movie, whether it was because of this campaign or not, it put a new spin, it put a new life onto the Simpsons. And if you ever get a chance, Google Simpsonize Me, and you will laugh.
Yes. On the HBO, I get the jargon, right? Different platforms you're delivering material on, like YouTube and etc. Those are non-income producing deliveries that I'm sure are not cheap to create, even with normal technology. How do you start justifying that and back? Because YouTube, I'm sure you have to create it.
Well, some are revenue justified and some aren't. The HBO campaign, for instance, they're going to launch their broadband campaign in the next couple of months. And that's going to be a system where if you're an HBO subscriber, you'll get the broadband service for free. So it's an added value. So the hope is that while you're not necessarily charging for it, you're encouraging people who don't have HBO, and I don't know why they wouldn't, but those who don't have HBO to go out and get HBO because they can also get the broadband experience. As far as other platforms like iTunes and podcasting, you do make money off of those. I mean, iTunes isn't free. Those have an actual revenue attached to them. And then, the third point of it is like what NBC has learned in their Olympic study, is that, in today's day and age, you have to create more awareness for your show and for your product. And, HBO has a lot of competition right now. And, we have to create as much buzz as we can for our shows so that people stay with HBO. I mean, it's the cost of doing business today. To get people to watch Big Love and to keep those ratings high, maybe you have to invest some money in sending out little Big Love previews or snippets or trailers onto the iTunes and YouTube, just to keep your audience. It's kind of reality.
That's what worked actually for NBC with the show The Office. When The Office was first on with Steve Carell, it was not very popular. And the reason why it has grown the way it has is because of iTunes. It's always I'd say between that and Lost and a couple of others, they dominate the top 10 in terms of iTunes downloads. It's what made The Office, the viral quality to it, really made it popular.
I really don't mean to be a worrywart here, but I have another question. Lawrence Goldman wrote in the Star Ledger last Sunday about the popularity of iPods and cell phones and the speakers on your computers, questioning the value of the sound, because he is, as you may or may not know, the director of New Jersey PAC, the New Jersey NJ Performing Arts Center. And he's been there ever since it was, a hole in the ground. So I have a question, all three of you. How do you deal with this diminished sound in iTunes, in iPods, in any kind of music or any kind of sound? Your voiceover people are certainly not getting the right sound of that they hope for their voices. So could you address that question, please?
Well, from the HBO perspective, yeah, sound is a big issue, but it's like, in television, we started, in mono, and then we went to stereo, and then we're at 5.1, and then soon it's going to be 8.1. And that didn't happen in a span of a week or two, and I think the same thing's going to happen with those new media devices. When we started our iTunes campaign about a year ago, our producers were running around simply just trying to cut whatever sound bites they wanted to themselves, and they would do it on whatever device they had in their office and just try to have it sent through the encoder to Apple and be done with it. And then our NQC department said, wait a minute, we have to look at this like we do our actual television show. We've got to make sure that this is a good quality control on it. We've got to make sure that it sounds good, it hits certain levels, and it meets certain needs. And so I think the first thing you do is you do a quality check. While you don't know what necessarily is going to happen once it gets to the end user, quite honestly, you don't know what's going to happen in TV anymore once you get to the end user. I mean, we could shoot the best show we can in 1080i or 1080p in our trucks, but by the time it gets, up on the satellite and down in Hauppauge and then sent through the cable and compressed, when you get it to the house, it's lost a lot anyway. And the same thing happens in those types of new media platforms, and I think that what's going to happen is that technology will evolve like it has in every other platform. It's just going to happen much quicker. And what you get now audio-wise is going to be very different than what you get a year from now audio-wise on those devices. It's just going to change.
I think Showtime also has great sound.
Who?
No, I think the most important thing also to understand, and this was a hard thing for me to swallow when I was in television, is that the expectations are a little lower on, in this case, online at least. With it, people understand that it's based on connection speeds. It's based on, there are a lot of factors beyond just what would be unforgivable on television, might not be that unforgivable to a consumer. And it's a little bit of a sliding scale. It's not necessarily for the better. I think that's just one of the things that we always have to kind of cope with.
Any other questions?
I'm curious about Jason's take or anybody's take on the future of commercials with DVRs. My little girls go 3 and 5. Literally freak out when a commercial comes on because it shows over because I have DVR for commercials.
Well, I think that, certainly television commercials have, I'd love to see the numbers in the advertising industry. I'm sure someone has them in this room. I mean, certainly there's not a person who has a TiVo who doesn't fast forward now through commercials. But I think, to Adam's point, you have to get clever in how you get your client's message out to the public. If you're going to stay in the television industry, and certainly, these two gentlemen can talk about print, online, and phone advertising. But, in the television industry, let's just say, one of the medians out there in the PR world, for instance, is you can do, satellite media tours, and that's a system in where you can take your client and you can basically put someone in front of a satellite and put them up on the bird and basically let them talk to 20, 30, 40 different stations around the country during their newscast about whatever product you have in a clever manner. So maybe a certain person is saying that the Dove soap bar, reduces risks for cancer, and if that's the case, then you put that person on stations from around the country and they hop from ABC in Cincinnati to CBS in Jacksonville to the Fox in Denver, and now you've put them into the newscast, a program in which people are watching and they're not TiVoing and they're not being distracted and they're not turning away. So I think it's just how can you be clever, in television? I mean, you got to find ways, in sports, if you notice, every trick camera, every, gadget and gizmo we have now comes sponsored. We have a thing called the cable cam. It's this great flying camera that they use in football also. It has, 4 wires and it flies around an arena or a field. And every time we go to our cable cam shot, you'll see a little logo on the bottom, because it's sponsored. So I think it's just creativity, and I mean on the phone side and in the internet side it's different, but in TV, just think out of the box.
You talked about the embedded content approach.
I'm sorry?
When you're talking about embedded content.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, Dave was asking about embedded content, and I think that's a large part of what Jason's talking about with the, the sponsorship of different tools. But, I mean, one show that might not have the ratings it once did and might not be as popular as it once was, but still makes a fortune, think of The Apprentice. There are so many brands that had basically an hour-long commercial where their executives looked very stern and had to judge what the celebrities were doing. But when it comes down to it, there was basically 45 minutes for Dove soap or for whatever the case may be. Embedding it within the show is so vitally important. I think also with commercials, I think you're going to, in my opinion, is you're going to see a couple of different trends. You'll see, I think we're going to see shorter but more frequent commercial breaks, because the first and the last spot in the pod is always the one that's going to be seen the most, because by the time you picked up that remote to fast forward, or you don't want, nobody's good enough, if anybody is, God bless them, but I can't fast forward to right to the point where the show starts. Those spots are worth infinitely more money. If you're watching a newscast, you'll see the car dealerships are often in those last spots before the commercial, before the programming. I'm sorry? Yeah, that's exactly right. And then I think the other thing is with live programming, especially in entertainment, I think you're going to see more, it's going to be Back to the Future. You know, back when, you know, the Cavalcade of Stars or whatever it was sponsored by certain certain products. And you'll see Milton Berle smoking a cigarette, you know, because Marlboro is sponsoring the show. You may see that at some point, not smoking necessarily during the show, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy Kimmel ever starts talking a little bit about this brand or that brand.
There's product placement
Everywhere.
Product placement
Everywhere.
whenever you're watching a show anymore. You know, it's not just they're drinking the soda, they're drinking, you know, make sure you see the Coke can or the Pepsi can or whatever.
Sopranos was notorious for that.
Desperate Housewives, when they had that Buick lacrosse thing, I mean, boy, I thought they should have jumped the shark there.
Well, there's a little known show, American Idol, that if you're ever thirsty, perhaps you'll want a Coca-Cola, and if you're ever going to drive anywhere, maybe it's the Ford. It's the most blatant example of commercialization, and to the point where they do it almost with a wink, you know, where they do a cheesy video where they're all driving the Ford, and they'll talk about the iTunes downloads as explicitly as they'll talk about anything else.
There's a way to hack your remote so it jumps to 30 seconds.
Look it up in Google.
I'll email you the link.
I got to call home.
Thank everybody. I want to thank everybody. Michael's going to come up and close it out, but how about a round of applause for these three great speakers?
Thank you. Obviously, it was a tremendous program, and I'm delighted that we could all enjoy it live. However, just to let you know that we just don't talk the talk, we walk the walk. You can catch this program on MCAI's internet immediately after this program. And eventually, as soon as we figure out how, on our website, New Jersey Advertising Club. So you can share it with your friends, you can watch it again, and hopefully this will become more of what we do in the future. So thank you all speakers, it was wonderful. Thank you.